Hey everyone, welcome back to the Tech News where we bring you the most interesting stories that happened this week and put it together for your viewing pleasure. Today we have cloning, we've got Korean hackers, we've got electric vehicles taking over the world, and then some. So without further ado, smash that like button, sit back, get a cup of coffee, and let's get into it. In biotech, let's talk about cloning. Cloning's been here for a while. You all know about Dolly the sheep. If you don't, it was one of the first cloned animals in the world. And since then, we've been cloning quite a few animals. It turns out we've cloned different types of cattle, we've cloned frogs, we've cloned camels, a whole gamut, a veritable zoo full of animals. But what's interesting is what's happening in the US right now. We're talking about Elizabeth Ann. You see, Elizabeth Ann is a young black-footed ferret, part of an endangered species of animals that number in the 400 to 500 range in the wild in the United States of America. Actually, the black-footed ferret was thought to have been completely extinct in the 1970s, but in the 1980s they found a small number of them on a farm somewhere in the United States, and they decided to bring them in to a breeding program where they raised their numbers up to 4 to 500 and released them into the wild again. Now, however, they're turning to new techniques because the gene pool has stagnated a little and they need a little fresh variety and diversity to help them procreate and to make greater numbers of ferrets. This is where Elizabeth Ann comes in. Elizabeth Ann has a secret. See, Elizabeth Ann is actually a clone. She's a genetic copy of another wild ferret that lived back in the 1980s whose name was Willa. Willa died in the 1980s without any known living descendants. And we don't know what she got up to in her younger days, but as far as I know, she doesn't have any grandchildren. Her dead cells were preserved in cryostasis and recently used along with eggs that were taken from domesticated ferrets. Domesticated ferrets are sort of cousins. They're not the same species, but they're very closely related. Willa's cells, along with their eggs, together formed new embryos, one of which grew into Elizabeth Ann. Little Elizabeth Ann was born on the 10th of February 2020, making her one of the few good things to come out of that year. Let's pull up a photo of her. This is Elizabeth Ann on the 31st of December when she was 3 weeks old. So far, she is alive, healthy, and she will be monitored closely by the authorities. Assuming she stays healthy and she grows and lives a productive life, her grandchildren and great-grandchildren will be introduced into the wild by 2024 or 2025. And she will introduce some much-needed diversity to the stagnant gene pool, and hopefully their numbers will grow and flourish in the wild in the future. What a lovely story. An unrelated piece of news in biotech is in North Korea. See, South Korean intelligence officials have informed their lawmakers that North Korean hackers and Russian hackers have been stepping up their game lately as they have recorded a 32% increase year on year in hacking activity. You may wonder why this is biotech. Well, it isn't exactly biotech, but according to South Korean intelligence officials, the object of the South Korean hackers seems to be Pfizer. Apparently, the hackers have been going after Pfizer's coronavirus vaccine treatments and data. Whether they've been successful or not has been unclear, and Pfizer till date has not commented on the subject, so we don't know if they've gotten their hands on anything as of yet. This is a bit odd because North Korea has actually claimed to have no coronavirus cases whatsoever, which is to be taken with a pinch of salt because they've also ordered for 2 million doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. Now, North Korea did close its borders with China earlier when the pandemic was just starting, or when we started to get to know about it, and this has affected their economy given that China is one of their biggest trading partners. But it seems the hackers have compensated for this in some way or the other because in 2019 they have been associated with cryptocurrency theft up to the tune of $2 billion. And given what we've seen of cryptocurrencies lately, it's probably worth a fair bit more right now, so maybe they're not doing that badly. Nonetheless, it remains to be seen if they start manufacturing their own vaccine at some point. Next up, in the world of automotive tech, Ford has just announced that by 2025, that's just 4 years from now, they will be phasing out all their ICE vehicles. ICE, by the way, is internal combustion engine, which is basically the car that we all know and love and have in our garages. They run on petrol or diesel. They burn the fuel, convert that energy into mechanical energy, and spin the tires, right? Well, Ford says by 2025, all its offerings in Europe will be either BEVs or PHEVs. That's basically battery electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid vehicles. Think Teslas and Toyota Priuses. That means by 2025, they'll be phasing out every internal combustion engine they have, and they will only have these two offerings. Then they stepped it up a notch and said by 2030, they will have only battery electric vehicles, which is completely electric vehicles and not plug-in hybrids. No dependence on fossil fuels whatsoever in the region of Europe. And they're not the only ones. You see, General Motors, GM, in America, said that by 2025, 40% of all its vehicle offerings in the United States were going to be electric, and by 2035, they will sell only zero emissions vehicles and nothing else. Car giant Volkswagen has made similar promises to convert to at least 60% all electric fleets by 2035 in the European Union. This has been pushed forward partly because of European Union's emission controls, and partly because it seems to be the way of the future and everybody's getting on board better sooner than later. So if you have a piece of property, then you might want to start thinking about installing one of those wall chargers to raise your property value, because I can guarantee you in 15 years, people will be looking for that sort of thing. Just a little tip from me to you. And finally, in consumer tech. For those of you who know about Google, do you know about Chrome OS? Well, most of you are watching this on a phone, which means you're using Android OS. But if you're watching this on a laptop, chances are you're using Windows operating system or the Mac operating system from Apple. These are the two biggest operating systems in terms of market share, with Windows being close to 85% market share and Mac being around 6.5. Well, not anymore. As of 2020, Chrome OS is now the second largest operating system in the world, unseating Mac OS's position and taking second place only to Windows. Now, it may seem that Chrome OS has taken some market share from Mac OS, but this is in fact not true. Mac OS actually increased its market share by about 0.8% last year. However, Windows lost about 5% of market share, which means a lot of people are opting for Chromebooks or Chrome OS notebooks. Speculation is that this growth in Chrome OS was driven in large part by homeschooling in 2020 due to the pandemic. A lot of kids needed laptops, and instead of spending thousands of dollars on laptops that work on Windows or Mac OS, parents opted to choose the much cheaper Chrome OS. Okay, maybe you don't know what Chrome OS is. I'm going to run it down very quickly. Chrome OS is by Google. It works primarily on the cloud, which means everything, all the processing, all the work done is on Google servers. So if you buy a Chromebook, which is what you call a laptop with Chrome OS, and you start it up, it has a suite of applications, including rivals for Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Pretty much everything Windows gives you for most users that are not power users is available in Chrome OS. When you start the application, it runs off the cloud. What this means is that the laptop's hardware doesn't have to be high-end, doesn't have to be very powerful. It just needs to be able to access the internet and display information to you, which means cheap hardware, and that in turn translates to much cheaper laptops. You can see how parents might favor this for their children, because maybe they don't want to spend that much money on a small child for a laptop for schoolwork, and that's understandable. But given that they can't run all the latest games, chances are you're going to have to buy the latest PlayStation or Xbox anyway, so maybe it is sometimes useful to go for the more expensive laptop. Just my 2 cents. In other news from Google, Google's Pixel range of phones have a little bit of a problem. You see, recently, more and more users are reporting a problem with their camera app. Every time they start their camera app, it gives them a message saying something's gone wrong and that you should try restarting the app. When they try to restart the app, it doesn't seem to be working. Google responded saying that they don't seem to be tracking any software issues, which means the problem might actually lie in the hardware. Most of the complaints are from users of Pixel 2 and 3. However, given that from the Pixel 2 to the Pixel 5, it's the same camera sensor in use in every phone, it is conceivable that these issues will start cropping up in later Pixels as well. In fact, some of the users complaining were in fact using Pixel 4s and 5s. So, Google now wants customers who are facing this issue to contact their customer service to see if something can be done about it. And if you do own a Pixel, even if it is working, maybe it's a good time to start thinking of a trade-in. And that's it for the tech news today, guys. It's been a short segment, but I hope you enjoyed the stories today. We're tracking a few more very interesting stories that we'll bring to you over the course of the week. Till then, thank you for tuning in. Hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Stay colorful. Peace.